In the previous class, I tried to explain that the belief that money has power is a false belief, but we need to know a little more before we begin to grasp what is going on in the world, and more importantly, what is going on within our own minds. For our own minds are the power that creates, and yet we have learned to use them against ourselves. We are all aware that there is an evil in the world. Every spiritual teacher has said so, and every act of hatred and torture and war and suffering is but proof that this is so. So though this is about understanding money, it is also about understanding how evil operates, so that we can see when we are being deceived and have the ability to deny it. If we don't even know we are being deceived, then there is no thought to question it, and so no need to change it. Because the goal of evil is deception, and deception happens in the mind, we need to understand that we are being deceived to be able to change how we are using our own minds. Deception is kept in place because it is hidden in plain sight, where it will never be questioned, because it's already accepted as part of reality and therefore is real and true. And so we do not question something that we feel is or we think is real and true. And I'm sure we're all aware of how everyone is fixed on chasing and needing and wanting more money. Even if we have enough, it's never enough. And when there is enough, we are consumed by the need to keep buying more and more, and eventually hoarding so much baggage around ourselves that it becomes itself a sickness. And when there are the feelings of dread and fear that we can't survive without it, we live in a state of insecurity and weakness. And there is always the fear of losing it through unforeseen events like theft, making the wrong choice. And of course there are the constant threats of never-ending taxes imposed upon everyone, taking away what we have sacrificed our lives for. So this is the dilemma of money. Yet to keep chasing something that is false is but to chase for what cannot be found, and so the chase is without end. To look for power and safety and abundance where they do not exist is to keep having to face disappointment and disillusionment. So we're going to look a little deeper into how the things that we ask for and what we desire do come to us. So when we buy things with money, what we're doing is we're literally proving to ourselves that money has power. By looking deeper into what is happening, we can see that we are simply joining our own will with that of another. And by joining our wills together, there is the power of creation. The money that was exchanged has not changed its form, nor has it actually done anything other than change hands. What it has done, it has enforced the false belief that the power of money was necessary for the desired outcome to happen. But what is dead and what is without life cannot create, because what is dead is powerless, and money is not living, and so it must be without power. And so the items that we are desiring have come to us without any power from outside ourselves, because we can understand that the money is still the paper note or the digital mark on the computer. The only difference is that it is now seen in another place, and it is seen that it is no longer ours. Other than that, nothing has actually occurred. So it was an unseen force that brought the effects of having to us, and the money was just there to prove to us that having is dependent on money. Yet no other creature on earth believes in money or has need of money to survive or to be happy. And like us, they receive what they need only because they desire it. Our desires are just a little more complicated, that's all. But complexity is not a problem for the intelligence that created us and created the whole of existence. In fact, our little wants and our desires are simplistic in comparison to the complexity of creating a whole universe, or even one single body within it. But because seeing and believing are joined, they do come together, and what we believe we will see, and what we see we will believe. And so money fulfills this law of seeing because it gives us the ability to see a power that seems to be able to manifest the things that we ask for, and is the cause of bringing to us the things that we desire. So we believe money has power, and so we see it as the cause. If this is believed, it will not be questioned. It is only when we do see within ourselves that money hasn't actually done anything can we begin to question its power. It can only be what it is. Any power it seems to have has been given to it by our will, which is the choice of how we think and how we use our thoughts. This is where power is, and this is the only place where power can be found. It can be found because it is within us. Money, on the other hand, is always being chased and looked for and never truly claimed as ours because of its lack of reality and because it is outside of us, where it cannot be truly understood. Yet something that is without power has become meaningful to us because we have given it all the meaning that it has. So why would we choose to give away a power that is within us to something else that is outside of us? And the answer to this is that we have been deceived into believing we are weak because we have been taught our Creator is outside of us and not within us. This was made possible because when we entered into this world and we entered into the body, we came in a state of forgetfulness and a state of forgetting who we are in reality. And so everything we think we know, we have been taught, or we have taught to ourselves from a place of not knowing. And so just because we believe something to be true, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is true. It just means this is what we are believing based on past judgments, which is where perception is learnt. We should remember that perception and seeing are not the same thing. Seeing should really be meaningful to reality, but perception is a judgment of reality, and so it is like seeing that we do within a dream. We perceive within a dream what is not there, and we give it all the meaning it has. So only within the dream is it meaningful. Outside of the dream, its meaning is lost. So money serves the function of proving to us that we are weak, and to prove to us that what is happening because of something outside ourselves. So when we buy something, we exchange money for that object, believing that the money has brought to us that object. But that is just so that we can believe and see together. The truth of what is happening is that it is a non-physical power that brings to us our desires and our wants. And it is this non-physical power that we cannot see, because the eyes of the body cannot see the reality of oneness and the totality of who we are. So they were made to perceive and not see. So they perceive separation, limitation, and isolation. Yet our will is still part of the will of a higher mind, the higher will, the will that sees us as one and unites us together. And so it is this will that is powerful, and it is this will that is within everybody and everything. So when we wake up to the realization that our reality is a oneness and that we are part of each other, then we begin to align our will with the power of everyone else's. And this is the power that brings to us everything that we need and everything that we want and desire. And this is the power of our security, our safety, and our abundance in this world. Without this power, we are weak, and we are slaves to an illusionary false power that we do see outside ourselves. Beyond the body identity, there is a oneness that we are all a part of, and this oneness is the meaning of God, and it is this oneness that joins all things together. And by recognizing within ourselves that we are part of that, and that that is within us and all around us, it surrounds us, and it is within each other. And so it is that power that simply and without difficulty opens up a new way of living in the world. Because we will see that we are all part of each other, we will feel safe and grateful to each other. Then where is the need for money? And where is the need for governments? And where is the need for war and fighting, when we realize that we are actually our own brothers and sisters? We are part of each other. So although we think we are separate, and we have separate wills and separate thoughts and separate truths, in the reality of our oneness, there is only one will that we all share, and there is only one truth. And it is this that brings us everything that we've asked for. And in this giving and receiving, there is no loss or sacrifice of any kind. So this is why the mind is one, and we all share part of the mind of God, which is the greater mind, the higher mind, the mind of divine intelligence and the mind of creation. To think outside of this is to be fearful, because to be outside of the mind of unity is to believe that we are outside of love, and to be outside of God's love is the meaning of evil, the meaning of hell, and the birthplace of fear, and where we think insanely about ourselves. The world at this present time is going through a hellish state of insanity because we are thinking insanely, outside of the unified mind that protects all things and gives meaning to all things and gives abundance to all things, because it is the loving mind, a mind of a loving creator. It is not a fearful creator, not a creator to be feared. Governments have simply taken on the face of a false God and the false authority that is mentioned in many spiritual scriptures. They are making their own laws, and they are not made in love, but they're made in fear to enslave and to destroy. And this is what we are seeing in the world. And this is why we need to re-look at how abundance, security and health are coming to us. Because we need to free ourselves from the deception that it is coming from outside forces. Governments and its various partners have corrupted money to serve their own agendas, and because they have been corrupted by evil, we cannot keep empowering them, because they are leading man to hell. The challenges that we face in the world at this time is undoing the false beliefs and undoing the deception that we've all been part of. We've all been deceived, and we must all undo this together within ourselves first. Because seeing and believing are synonymous and come together, the challenge is, how do we begin to believe something that we cannot see? This can be answered in this way. We do not see the air, but we know that it is there because we can feel the wind on our skin. And we do not see gravity, but we know that it is there because we can feel the weight of things. And there is a new understanding regarding dark matter. It is called dark matter only because we do not have the instruments capable of seeing it. But science knows it's there, knows of its existence, because it can see the effects of what it produces. And that there is far more dark matter in the universe than there is of the electromagnetic light spectrum that our instruments and our eyes can detect. Consider this, that our eyes can see only 0.035% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. That is a tiny, tiny amount. 99.999999% we do not see. And so this is why seeing at the level of the body is perception, and perception is a choice. So we don't have to understand something to know how it works and to know that it is there. We just have to see the effects. So we don't have to see how things come to us, and we don't have to understand it. We just have to learn how to have faith and trust that they will. And this is all that is required. To have faith and trust in money is to have faith and trust in nothingness, because an illusion is nothingness. And to trust in nothingness is to trust in loss. And this is why everyone is taught to keep chasing what they can never find, because looking for something that they can never find is the goal of deception. And looking for power and safety and abundance in an illusion can only bring us to failure and despair and loss. Remember that the goal of evil is to destroy the truth of God's holy child, who is created in the likeness of himself. And so it does lead to despair, because it is the fear of loss. To wake up to the realization that the meaning of the child of God is within us is the greatest blessing that there is, because it is the knowledge that will set us free and lead us out of the darkness and the hell that is of our own making. So we can learn of things that we cannot see, and we can believe them by seeing the effects of what they do. And so the more consistently we apply the principles of the understandings that we are part of a oneness, and that we are part of a loving Creator and a part of each other, and that we can look within ourselves and have a glimpse of who we are in reality, then by doing that consistently, we will begin to believe in the power of miracles that our body's eyes cannot see. Money was simply made to see something that we could believe in, but it has become corrupted by insanity, and we are suffering now the effects of losing sight of the power within us. The function of the world is to give us the experience of what we believe is true for ourselves. And so all the time we think it's true that money is the way to power and safety and abundance, because that is what we've been taught, then the world will bring to us all the witnesses that will prove that we are right in our beliefs. But because it is an illusion, it will only lead to more illusions and to more despair. We are the ones who are deceiving ourselves through the power of our own choice of what we want to believe and what we will accept as true. And so there is no one doing this to us, but we are doing it to ourselves. And so it is within us where the power to change is, and to choose how we use our minds to think about ourselves. So when I speak about governments, and when I speak about banks and financial systems, it's not to blame anybody. It's just to bring some clarification to what is going on, because there is no one to blame, because we are all being deceived together, and every politician and every banker is believing in the deception too. They are being deceived just like us. We are all in this together. Even within the deception, we are all doing the best we can at the level of awareness we have. So it's not to attack anybody or blame anybody, but only to see that everyone is in need of help, because everyone is looking for a way out of hell that we are making ourselves, but we don't see it. The undoing of this is really nothing but the meaning of the awakening and the resurrection, and even the second coming of Christ. All these have meaning in the recognition and the remembrance of who we are. When we entered into the world and we entered into the body, we came in a state of forgetfulness, and the memory of who we are was lost to us. The memory is still there, but we do not have access to it. All the time we believe we are the body and that the world is what we say it is. And so we came in a state of not knowing, and from this place of not knowing, we have taught ourselves everything we think is true and real about the world. But because it came from a place of the lack of knowledge, it does not necessarily mean that what we believe is correct or true. In fact, because everything we think we know began with the loss of knowledge, it is actually far more probable that we have taught ourselves amiss and that we have taught ourselves untruths. Yet the universe and who we are was created from a state of complete knowledge, being the mind of the Creator. We are still who we were created to be, and we still have this knowledge within us. The memory is still there because it's still within the mind of God, where we are and where we still exist. Even though we can't see it with the body's eyes, we are surrounded by the mind of God. This is not about denying money, for that would be foolish, as it is the form of exchange in our present world. But what it means is that money can come in miraculous ways when it is seen for what it is, rather than seeing it for what it is not. The mind that has the power to create us and the power to create everything that surrounds us to the furthest reaches of the universe certainly has the power to fulfill our needs and our desires. Recognizing money as powerless does not mean that we are denying money. It just means that we are understanding that the power is not within money and claiming instead what is within ourselves. So we don't need to see how abundance comes to us. We don't have to know and understand what is still beyond our ability and our grasp, but we do need to free money of its illusions, and by this we will learn to stop blocking the will of God, the will that exists within us and exists within everyone. And so we learn that everything comes simply because we have asked for it, and that is enough. We also learn to stop asking for what will hurt us, because often we are asking for what will set us back. And so we might not always get what we ask for, but we will always get what we need. Things don't necessarily appear straight away either. They come when all the parts are aligned and all the wheels are joined as one, and so they come when the time is right and not when it is not. When we think abundance comes through a force power outside ourselves, then we must sacrifice our lives for it, to have it. And this always brings the desired objects, but they lose their sense of satisfaction and value very quickly, because the sacrifice we made was actually just too great, and so eventually they become disappointments for us because they could not fulfill the greatness of the sacrifice that we was willing to give for them. So part of the undoing process is learning to surrender, surrendering our ignorance and being okay with not knowing, surrendering to the knowledge of a higher mind and finding the joy in that. And because it is seen as part of who we are, everything it brings, it comes with gratitude and thanks. Often we ask for things because we're in a place of fear, or in a place of feeling loss, or in a place of suffering. And so sometimes we ask for things that will actually become burdens to us. When we learn to rely on the higher mind to answer our needs and our wants for us, then it can happen that we do not get what we ask for. This is a blessing and not a curse, because when we surrender our will to control the world and having to have immediate results and immediate gratification, we often realise that we actually don't want the things we ask for, and so we change our mind constantly. So by not getting them immediately, we are often freed from the burdens of carrying around weights and chains of worthless gifts. And as we learn to surrender, when we do ask for things, they start making their way to us when all the parts are aligned. And whether they appear as a gift or as a monetary exchange or in another way, they will appear with everything needed for the process to complete already in place. There will be no need to enslave ourselves to a money system of slavery, and there will be no need for sacrifice from anyone. There will be no need to sacrifice our lives in a job that we are not happy in, and the exchange process for all involved will be fulfilling and pleasant, and abundance will be felt by all. Basically, if we are working to survive and we are working for a living, it is because we have forgotten who we are. And so this is the undoing of the deception that we are not what God created us to be, and that we are unloved, and that we are weak, and that we are powerless, and that we require a power outside ourselves and an authority outside ourselves to take the place of our Creator. So you could say that who we are exists within the mind of God, and so everything that is outside of the mind of God is the meaning of evil and is leading to hell, because to see ourselves outside the love of God is to be afraid. And so everything that has been taught to us that is unloving and fearful because it is outside of the mind of God is an insane thought that is deceiving only because it is an illusion. The story of the fall of man and the creation of hell is but the story of the child of God who is a being of light who fell into darkness, and therefore he fell asleep and into forgetfulness. Just like when we fall asleep, we fall into darkness and we forget the reality of this world and of this body. And this is what is happening in the world. We have fallen asleep and we have fallen into darkness where we cannot see reality because our bodies were made not to see reality. And so we are creating a world for ourselves from a place of forgetfulness. And it is the undoing of this and the return to knowledge and remembrance that will be the way we will find our way out of a hellish state that is of our own making. We are creating our own dreams. All the time we believe we are the body and that we believe the world is what we say it is, we are simply lost to ourselves. And the dream of the world is deceiving us, not because there is anything there that is real, but only because we have given it all the power and the meaning to appear as if it is real. And yet this power still remains within us. And it's this same power that will undo the dream, a dream which has simply become a nightmare. When we come to the realization finally that we are not victims of this world and that we are the force that is creating the deception in the world, then we will realize that this power within us that is creating the deception is also the power that is going to uncreate it and finally return ourselves to a state which is closer to our true nature, which is one of love and one of the meaning of our home in heaven.